there. Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this show. If anybody's watching it at 4 o'clock in the morning because you can't sleep, I don't know what. I hope this class puts you to sleep so you get back to sleep. If you're taking some of those I watch put me to sleep, but I hope you go back to sleep. But if you're in it for the class and want to learn some things about gender, then I hope you stay awake through it, because we have some fun stuff to look at. Part of what I'm doing, I guess I have this habit of going around here and reading something, but it'll be okay. There's noise going in the background, and I have no idea what it is. It's what? Cinco Ranch. Oh, it's Cinco Ranch. Shauna, Amy, are you there?
Yes.
Welcome. That's better than last time when you blew us out of the tub.
I told her what I did.
Oh, about yelling on the deal?
Yes.
We'll
I
see.
didn't realize how sensitive it was, and I got it real close to it, and that's when I said, I'm here.
Yeah, and actually, Emily, our director back there, had turned up the volume. So it was one of those, whatever, synchronistic experiences. And John, you're out there in North Harris County?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. I see your arm. I see your arm and part of Shauna, I think. Yeah, scoot over a little bit, John. Scoot over a little, just a tad. There you go. I'd rather talk with a whole student than a half student. There you go. Wonderful. Why did you sign up for this course, John?
Sir?
Why did you sign up for the course?
Oh, I just wanted to learn a little bit more about psychology. It's my major, and I had an interest in it.
Well, cool. Great. It's good to have you. Amy, why did you sign up for the course?
I thought gender psychology sounded really interesting. I like psychology classes.
Nice answer. And Shauna, how about you?
We're actually, mine's kind of the same, and plus two, I have to admit I needed it as well, but it also sounded interesting too.
And nobody said Dr. Agan is such a wonderful teacher. I couldn't wait to get his class, but that's okay. You can make up for that another day. And whose grandmother had passed away? Was it Shauna's? Amy's. Well, is everything going okay?
I get, yeah.
With the family and everything?
Yeah, everything's fine.
Good.
Now.
Well, we've been thinking about you a bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, part of looking at this gender course, and I know the first few classes, there's a lot of information that I'm trying to create a new way to look at this. And sometimes, as I said, many of the authors of the books get frustrated. Here's a handout over here for you. Or you can sit here too. And people write new books according to how they can take on this topic from their perspective. And so I realized here in the first few classes, I'm trying to give you some background information in a way of an epistemology, a way of knowing, a way of perhaps looking at masculine, feminine, male, female, the gender issues that the books sort of pick up with a whole lot of assumptions that I think we need to step back a little bit and look at more maybe a philosophy of gender, archetypal issues of gender, the collective unconscious issues of gender, things that we all have. One of my favorite writers is Sam Keen, who's a psychologist and author and writer, and this book is entitled Your Mythic Journey. And there's a great quote here, which I think is sort of what I like to do whenever I start a class or in the early sessions of a class, is to we have to sort of lose our identity, because we come in here with all these ideas and insights, and many of them conscious, many unconscious. And often the task of learning is unlearning. Certainly by the time you get to 30 or 40, we have learned so many things in our life about ourselves, about the world about us, about our philosophy and meaning of life, that often it gets in the way of continual learning and discovery. So anyway, here's a bit of his writing. He says, psychology ought to be much more concerned with boredom and excitement and less with mental illness and lost and found identity. The disease of the modern psyche is more of a vacuum than a thorn in the flesh. If we are alienated, disgraced, frustrated, and bored, it is because of what has not happened to us, because of potentialities we have not explored. Few of us know the fantastic characters, emotions, and perceptions and demons that inhabit the theaters that are our minds. We are encouraged to tell a single true story, construct a consistent character, fix an identity. We are thus more defined by neglected possibilities than realized ones. We rehearse and repeat monotonous monologue while heroes and villains, saints and madmen, aesthetics and libertines wait in the wings for a chance to seize center stage and run wild. In this sense, identity, sort of who we think we are, is a repetition compulsion, a conspiracy to put a consistent face before the world, to cover up the glorious inconsistencies of emotions and desires. The character we develop domesticates the world and leaves us no wilderness to play in. There are many territories of imagination and many strange regions of emotions that we may not enter without throwing our sanity into question. And here's the crux of his writing. Until we cross some borders, we are likely to remain rational, banal, boring, and bored. A major concern of any therapeutic psychology should be to help an individual lose identity. First, it's not who you are, but what if you threw out who you were? What if you threw out what it meant to be a woman, to be a man? What if you threw out what it meant to be masculine and feminine? What if almost daily, maybe it's the heart of the true willing learner, what if daily you decided, I want to learn this all over again. I want to act as if today I don't know anything that's going on. Well, what we end up doing is we create this identity in his great line. We end up remaining rational, banal, boring, and bored because we're not willing to cross some borders, to think some different thoughts, to embrace some new ideas. In the theological world, the only way you grow is you've got to embrace your heresies. You've got to embrace your doubts. You've got to think outside the box. Certainly in relationships, you have to dare to ask the question, what is loving? What is this relationship all about me? Or is it about you? Do you get what you want in life by grabbing it? Or do you mysteriously get it by giving? Is relationship about what I can get from you? Or is it about what I can give to you? And so it's often what hasn't happened to us. And at any age, the whole idea is to keep folding back the onion skin so that we keep discovering a deeper level of who we are. You buying that, Amy, Shauna? Okay, you made up for not throwing a bouquet at me this morning because you learned well from the last class. Okay, I have a handout that everyone on TV has except for John and Shauna and Amy, but I'll send it out. Did y'all got the handouts from the other day?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I have another one that I want to hand out and look at. Because part of what we're talking about is, in terms of sexual identity and gender, is we're looking at the aspect that gender is, that our sexuality is defined by nature to a large degree based on our chromosomes, what we get or don't get, our hormones, our brain structure. But that gender, to a large degree, at least the texts keep affirming this, are sort of defined by the collective ego. Collective means the group, the society. The ego is sort of how the society defines how it's going to survive and what roles we must take on. In this class, what we're going to look at more next week, too, the next class, about the collective unconscious archetypes and how, in fact, it's not just the collective ego that's defining what a woman is, what a man is, what masculine and feminine, but there are perhaps some deep imprints that lies within our subterranean psychic world that we honor the masculine and feminine and male and female. And that's kind of where the course is going to go. And I think part of it, what it'll do is it'll give you a chance to, awaken to how you see yourself and how you see other people. And one of the things Carl Jung said, and I've been a fan of his ideas for a number of years, is that the world doesn't change through mass movements. The hope for the world is if enough individuals dare to take this journey of becoming their true self. The hope is if enough individuals dare to go into the inner world, cast off the identity. Of course, the identity we put together the first half of life for survival is also the identity that will keep us from becoming who we're meant to be. But those who are courageous enough to keep asking the question, who am I? What is the meaning of my dreams? What is the meaning of these struggles? What is my history? How was I affected by my family of origin? What are these things that go bump in the night? What are these things that disturb me, awaken me? And how can I dare to keep listening to this deeper self? And that's called the process of individuation. It means to become an individual, not divided. That what you see outwardly is what is going on inwardly. And most of us, in fact, have a huge split psyche because most people don't know themselves. They don't know the vastness of their own unconscious world. And so that vastness comes out in sort of shadowy ways. Everybody you hate, we are who we hate. So if you want to know about yourself, just make a list of like 3 or 4 people you hate, and then why you hate them, and then you've just met your negative shadow. A woman in my office the other day said, and she's obviously well on her way on her journey, and she walked out, she turned and she said, now should I make a list of the men I hate or the women I hate first? And I said, it's just beautiful, wonderful, whatever. But I thought, she's embracing those parts of her life, see? Because the quest is, the journey is, well, why do I hate these people and what do these things say about me? See? And then, and at the same time, make a list of 3 or 4 people you adore, you admire, people you look up to, men, women. And you'd find out, you wouldn't admire it in them if you didn't have it within you. You wouldn't connect out there unless there was a piece within you that would stimulate it. And so, see, you can learn about yourself. And, of course, the question is what do you do about it? See? Well, you have to come to terms with the things in yourself you don't like and find a way of integrating them. Rainier Maria Rilke, the Prussian poet, said, behind every dragon is just a prince or a princess that yearns to be loved. See? I might hate my insecurities. Oh, I hate that I'm so insecure at times and just can't get it all together. See? And I should be more secure, should, ought to, have to. See, I got should on as a kid like most of us. So, but yet the insecurities is where I get my tenderness. It connects me with the human race, with other people, because I'm aware of that we're all are a bit insecure and frightened. See? And so that which I hate can also, there's really gold in them, their hills, if I would dare to embrace it. This is called shadow work. And much of the gender battle that's going on in this country and other countries is really shadow work. It's a power struggle. It's people people who have not integrated their own issues or projected out on others. Powerful people are afraid by weak people because a powerful person overtly has not embraced their own weakness. A weak person, whatever that means, is intimidated by a powerful person because they have not found their own personal power. See? And so what we do is we fight our own inner world outwardly in relationships and gender battles and everything. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the Russian writer of the Gulag a cappella days, said that the only war that exists inside the human psyche, and all other wars are mere projections. See? So as we owe it to the world to sort of put our own house in order. And we do that by reflecting, we do that by coming to class, reading some books, struggling with it. And Milena was Milena? That's it. Was talking about reading He, which I'm hopefully some of you have bought it and are beginning to look at it. And that stuff is kind of difficult. One of the dilemmas I have when I teach is whether to spoon feed little chicklings or, chiclets out there, whatever, chiclets, isn't that something you eat? Is to spoon feed you and you walk away and you never think. I give it to you, regurgitate back on test, and you walk away and say, like most of us, you remember it for the test and it's over. But the bigger diamonds are at the bottom of the mind. So you have to work to get there. And so if you don't understand something, it's like, cool, because that means you're digging around and it's not making sense. But perhaps in doing that, we can dig together and look a little deeper. Okay, the handout I gave you, and let me, I'll put this here on the TV screen, but y'all will have it with you. Can you zoom in on that a little more? Isn't that wonderful? And this is, what we're going to talk today is about authority and ego development and fears, and try to knock out some of that today. I actually got this from a 12-step group, Codependence Anonymous, I used to attend. And it really honors the whole idea of individuation. I'm the world's best authority on the subject, me. More than any other person, I know what is best for myself. I can be an individual who lets things happen to me, or I can determine to be in charge of my life, to be an autonomous, free person. I can dream and also plan, make choices and decisions, express my wants and needs, assert my individual self, my rights, my ideas. I can create, play, and share who I really am as a human being. Today, I commit myself to be and act as I know I can be, the real me, the best possible me. I know I need to be close to another person at times. I will seek to fulfill that need, but love them no more than I love myself, nor meet their needs at the sacrifice of my own. In whatever conflict I experience, I will meet the other person halfway. I will not be a loser that he or she might be a winner. I will not put myself down or discount my feelings or intelligence. I don't need my own criticism of myself. Today, I make these commitments to myself to be my own best friend. And that probably takes a lifetime to develop that. Very few people at the age of 12, 15 could say this, because we all grow up with, unfortunately, just the way it is, we're not blaming our parents, but we all grew up with imperfect people. Many of them who have not found their own personal power and authority, who haven't developed their own ego. For good or ill, most of us have post-adolescent mothers. Very few children have an integrated woman to be their mother. And the instinct of mothering is good enough that we all sort of get good enough mothering, but often many of the wounds we get in life, one of the ways our parents serve us is by wounding us, is because what they don't provide. Because if they provided everything, we would never leave. And we'd stay attached and in a symbiotic relationship with these caregivers. And as I think I've said, Bill Cosby said that's the reason God invented death, is in case your kids don't leave, you get to, finally. Thank you. I have the peanut gallery out there on TV laughing. Thank you for doing that. So the whole idea is about becoming a self and becoming a person. In my experience as a therapist and as a father and someone who's spent 30-something years involved in my own conscious awareness and trying to help others become their true self, one of the things I think is, see, really the answer to drug abuse and violence and inappropriate sexual expression and alcoholism and all that is that people don't have a sense of the wonder of their own true self and the beauty and wonder of life all about. And so what happens is not having this commitment to themselves and seeing that the most adventurous journey you will ever take is the journey of becoming your true self and honoring those things within. And because people lack that sense of wonder that the goal they're looking for lies within in terms of their gifts, their talents, their interests, their passions, their angers, those things, that libido energy, that creative daimon, D-A-I-M-O-N, dynamite, energy of life that lies within the creative expression of your true self. When you get in touch with that and commune with creation around you, you're not likely to be depressed and try to escape. But you see the wonder of your own personality. And that does a lot towards affecting our concepts of ourself and our gender identity. Okay. Any questions or comments? Are y'all buying this so far? I mean, don't buy it all. Yes, Michelle.
I thought just some of the lines seemed maybe a little selfish.
Selfish? Yeah, good. What seems selfish?
Like where it says, I will not meet their needs at the sacrifice of my own. But like if you have a mother and a child, when the kid's little, the mom's got to give up some stuff.
Yeah, I will not meet their needs at the sacrifice of my own. Yes, there it is. Yeah, of course. And how might we redefine that? Is part of meeting my needs as a parent is attending to my child. I attend to the child for the child's sake, but it's also fulfilling my archetypal role as a parent. I wouldn't feel true to myself if I neglected my role as a parent. So in that sense, it's kind of no, it's not selfish. You see, it's interesting. Self-fullness, and we talked about this the other day too, is different from selfishness. Self-fullness is that healthy narcissism. Is that right? Did I spell that correctly? Yes. Healthy narcissism is I have this 9 square feet of my place in the world, and I have a right to be here, and the mystery brought me here, and my expressing who I am and discovering who I am and attending to the I am that I discover is wonderful, as long as I give you permission to do it too. Unhealthy narcissism is selfishness. And that would be unhealthy narcissism. An unhealthy narcissism would say, look, it's all about me, it's all about me, it's all about me. And, I don't care if you get yours or if you become who you, because it's all about me getting mine. And this world is pervasive with this unhealthy narcissism. Because the fact is, I can't become me without you, and you can't become you without me. And what's the secret of love and intimacy? It's the greatest kept secret in the world, it seems, these days. Is that I want to be in a relationship with you because I have much to give to you, to help you become who you are. It's surrender. It's having a sense of self and making a choice to surrender that self to another person that you get by giving. See, it's sacrificial love, which is a higher love, because it says, I want you to become all you're meant to be, and I want to help do that. And I trust that my needs will be taken care of. And if they're not, of course, I'll take care of them. But I'm well enough able to take care of myself that I have a self that I've discovered that I want to help yourself come forth. See? And that requires sacrifice. That requires this terrible, difficult concept called unconditional love, agape love, abandonment, and surrender to another. And isn't that what we do as parents? Is we say, I'm willing to surrender my life, power, wealth to help you become all you're meant to be. And it's an incredibly transforming experience. To love another for their sake will humble you like nothing else. And it's the parent who's narcissistic. We'll look at this in a minute. It's the narcissistic parents who wounds the child. Who says, by the way, this relationship with you and me is really about me because I'm lonely. What will I do when I'm old if I don't have a child? See, I need you to be the mother that I didn't have. I need you to give me stimulus and interest because I'm too afraid if I, go back to school or if I pursue something of interest that I might fail at it. But if you'll let me have these kids, and kids will give me an identity. And I've often shared this before, and it will come out in many ways. There are a lot of women who start being, they go from being a little girl, and then they become a wife. This is a little passé somewhat. And then they become a mother. But they never become a woman. They never become a person. And often that woman projectively identifies with motherhood. See, I'll always be your mother. You may be 60 years old, but I'll still be your mother. Well, that's real inappropriate. See, because by definition, adults don't have mothers. You have former mothers, friends, or a lot of times, and when that doesn't work, then someone will cling to being an appendage of another. It's rarely now I'll see a check with somebody's name on it that'll have Mrs. John Doe. See, and in this generation, we've all changed that. We put two names or whatever, people have their own identity. We see an evolution, don't we, of gender identity and marital identity. But heretofore, women would not go get loans unless they had that male's name on there, because he carried the clout. So having not become a woman or a person where your power is, people hang on to motherhood long after it's appropriate, and then they hang on to being an appendage of somebody else. In this case of a woman, looking for a man to define her life and give her power, and when that doesn't work, what does often a woman do as she gets older? She regresses to childhood. She goes back. Why are you going to help me? And I don't know. I guess I'll be okay. And we try to use that, and it's not just women. We men do that. We use that regressive childhood behavior to elicit power from others. And so that the goal in life is to become a person. And actually, the goal in life is to become a person more than it is to become a man or a woman or a spouse or a parent. And if you become a person, you'll be a wonderful spouse and a wonderful man, wonderful parent, wonderful woman. By becoming a person. And you do that by knowing yourself and understanding the beauty and wonder of your own life. I have this quote from Thomas Merton that I just put on my near my computer screen. It says, "Lord, help me to become the person I really am, no matter how beautiful that may be." See how it sets you up? Help me become the person I really am. And you're waiting for the bomb, no matter how beautiful that might really be. See? Isn't that what we're afraid of? Is becoming the beautiful person we really are. Because our self-esteem is so pushed down, we often don't believe we have worth. And so all of that stuff we don't believe we have worth, guess what we do to it? What do we do with that? All that part of myself that I haven't integrated, I don't know about, I beat up and criticize myself about. What do I do with all that energy? Yeah, I stuff it, and what? Yeah, and then we'll look at it in a second too. And I project it. I say, you must give me meaning. You must give me power. You must take care of me. See, we project it, and then we go through life mad because other people didn't give us what we have to learn to find it within ourselves. Does that kind of make sense? And as I say that, I don't know that they're glib answers to get there. But all of the things, it's like you get into a relationship, you literally carry all the bags, don't you? It's like, hi, I love you enough that I've picked you to take care of all my baggage. Well, gee, I love you enough that I'll take care of all your baggage. And then two people come together, and they both have all their baggage in the unconscious. Fears, insecurities, gender identities, roles, sexuality, power struggles, concepts, unresolved problems with mothering and fathering of their parents, issues, all these issues. And they come into a relationship and say, now, this relationship will keep me from having to deal with my bags. Wow, cool. I better go find somebody, because I don't want to deal with my low self-esteem. I don't want to deal with my innate fears. I just want to find somebody so I won't have to deal with that. And see, and then what happens? We don't become a person. So it's interesting how relationships can help us to become, but they can also keep us from becoming because we project it onto the other. John, does this make sense somewhat?
Yes, it does. Very interesting.
Good, thank you. I like that. Very interesting. It is interesting.
I like the fact that we are, in a large degree, the people that are around us, and I never really looked at it that way before.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and then so the question I have to ask myself is, what part of my life am I handing over to somebody else today? And it could be minority groups in my mind. It could be, the President of the United States. It could be my, deceased parents. It could be relationships that I'm asking to be and do and give. And they say whenever your life is dependent on another person coming through so you can be happy, you're on real thin ice. You're skating on thin ice. Because, see, you're not dealing the depth of your own personhood. You're betting the farm that someone's going to come rescue you. And that's kind of scary because you can go through your whole life wanting that to happen, and what if they don't? Well, then you do, I'm not worthy, and I'm a nobody, and I'm a loser, or, we carry on these infantile feelings of that can sort of dog us. So the whole purpose is to grow up, take responsibility for your life. Start unloading your own bags. Start getting to know yourself. Start looking at the issues around your own family of origin issues. As I've asked you all to do, is make a list. Women are, men are. So, to do something like that and begin to dig through that. It's not popular, and many people don't do it. Only 5% of the population ever goes to therapy. 5%. But remember, the hope is enough individuals take this journey. See? If the nun from Yugoslavia who at 19 left the sacredness of the safety of her little convent because she wanted a life of adventure, and her senior arranged so she could go to Calcutta, India, and deal with the poorest of the poor. Well, that little 19-year-old neophyte, as it were, but later became Mother Teresa. And she just followed her calling. That one person made a huge difference. For many of us have been awakened that life of service, see, is how you get. So it's really neat. It seems like it's not going to work, but if you unpack your own bags and, who am I and where am I going and what are my issues? I mean, you have such incredible, you have so much impact on others, most of it you'll never know. You'll never know. Because when you see the depths of your own soul, you can look somebody else in the eye and see their soul. And then you go through your life and you think, who has ever looked you in the eyes, and seen the depth of your soul? Well, somebody who's aware of themselves knows how to see persons, individuals full of potential, ogres, angels, mystery. But those people just go through life calling forth persons all the time. And that's just one person who becomes committed to becoming themselves. That act of unpacking your own bags has tremendous effect on other people without even knowing. Can you imagine if your parents at 25 decided to start reading, he, she, we, decided to go therapy to find out how their parents had affected their life, how their childhood had affected their life? Can you imagine what would happen at 30, 35, 40? Your parents had started doing inner work. See? To be able to say, oh my gosh, I realize I've done things with you and to you inadvertently, unconsciously, that were very cruel and mean. Will you forgive me? See? I mean, to have a parent who's a person in process is unbelievable. And of course, your life changing will affect your loved ones for good or ill. Ill in the fact that people will be disturbed because you're not being who they need you to be. You may be something far richer. You're not being who they want you to be. You may be who they need you to be. Okay, so that was a long answer, but remember okay, selfishness, self-fullness is healthy. healthy narcissism because it affirms my worth and value, and I want you to become your true self. Selfishness is about me. Selfishness is really about egocentricity. Self-fullness is about soul centricity. Let me write that. It's being soul-centered. Selfishness is ego-centered. You got to have an ego. We're going to look at that. But what you don't want is the ego to be the center of your world, or you're going to be skating on thin ice, to use the metaphor for the third time today. And to become soul-centered is to be person-centered. It's to be centered at a deeper level. I just love doing that. Okay. Wish I had one of those windows to throw it to, like David Letterman. Don't go away. Compulsive need to keep things clean. Neat. Okay, one of the things I wanted to look at, and I was thinking about this the other night, and we looked at these 3 types of authority. And Amy, you can get that stuff from Shauna, right? Or I guess you can look at this on TV again, right? Can you get Can you get yesterday the other class? Yeah, you can. You can get it somehow. Well, and those on TV, obviously, you've taped this and you can look at it again. But by Max Weber, and we talked about 3 different types of authority, and I wanted to do this, and any of my former students are going, "Oh, not again, Dr. Again." Anyway, I'm sure this will be on my epitaph. And we looked at ego, which is the center of our willpower. It's this center complex in our field of consciousness. It's without an ego, you're not going to drive through the rain. Without an ego, you're not going to get dressed, eat, take care of yourself. And then down here is our unconscious, which is our soul. Of course, our soul or our self, Jung called it the self, called the true self. Our true self, the ego is part of our true self. It actually encompasses all of this. You might say our real self is all of this. But there's really 2 centers of life. One is the ego being the center of it, and the other one is the soul or the true self being the center of who we are. And I was thinking, and if up here, this is the ideal. Some deals call it the persona, Freudian model, and this is stretching this a bit. Persona means mask, and this is called the superego. This is kind of the shoulds, oughts, have tos, and supposed tos of life. Okay, if y'all can't read this, just tell me, and I have no idea what we'll do about it, but we'll do something. But when I was thinking about this, I was looking at this and thinking of these 3 types of authority, and it may be that the ideal, the mask, the superego from the culture, which has legitimate authority, is this would be traditional authority. Our traditional authority is really our persona, our mask, the expectations of culture, the ideal, and it's not bad. It's an important part of authority, for it gives us stability and rootedness. It's sort of like, it's important if you're going to be a person who wants to learn about life is to shut up every now and then and listen to what people have to say. Because there's been people around a long time that have lived life and have a lot to say about what it means to be a human being, about this journey of individuation, about gender, about male and female, masculine, feminine. Our traditional roles are not all bad. In fact, they are essential. Our customs, our precedents, our what we've always done has incredible meaning. And woe is a society that would blow away institutions that have brought meaning. For example, in America, often the churches and synagogues get a bad rap, but in the Judeo-Christian tradition, at a minimal level, these people keep sacred, mythological, powerful stories alive. Stories that will transform lives. Just they hold the stories together. Now, I don't always agree with how they interpret them or what trips they lay on the people that are listening, but it's a place that holds these sacred stories out of that tradition, as does other traditions hold their stories. So we can't say, let's get rid of all the religions. Well, those stories are important because we have to find some symbolic way place to hang our hat in order to find meaning in life. And, what's your story? What gives you meaning? How do you ferret out through the day and through the struggle? Where's it all headed? Do you have a story? Do you have a symbolic path? Or are you just kind of drifting through from day to day? Where do you get your meaning? So in tradition, we get a lot of that. Even things like, 4th of July and, Memorial Day and these holidays, that President's Day. These are all traditions that are carrying something about what it means to be a person in this culture, you see. So you don't want to throw all that out. It has meaning. The second thing is ego, and I thought in Max Weber, remember he talked about traditional authority, and ego may be rational authority. This is Herb Aganism. And rational authority in the 18th century, the age of Enlightenment, the French Revolution, the American Revolution, where the age of science, knowledge, where we experiment, where we look at life through by order and law and changing things, being rational, using our mind to think about things. And that's probably the work of the ego. It's like, I don't care what traditions you come from or what your depths of your soul says, you better eat today or you're not going to be alive. Or I don't care what your theology is. I don't care what your parents say. You better drive on the right side of the road in the United States or you're going to get killed. Or you're going to have a wreck. Well, why is that? Well, that's just your rational ego, rational authority. And I don't care what the old sacred stories say about husbands and wives and who's in charge and dominant submission. The fact is, all healthy marriages, and all the studies show this, and all our pragmatism shows this, that healthy, vibrant relatedness is a shared power thing, 50-50, where both are respected, revered, honored, consensus, compromises are embraced. See? I don't care what the sacred stories say. Well, and they have their wisdom, but practically what works. And see, that's rational authority, I think. I think that has to do with universal laws and study of things. And, of course, that's what our text is trying to do. It's trying to say, let's look at this rational authority. Let's don't get stuck in tradition. Let's stand on tradition. Let's keep learning more information. And then the other one that he talked about is charismatic authority. Charisma means grace. Or actually means gift. And charismatic authority is this irrational, intuitive, inspirational, unconscious. See, here it is down in the unconscious. Ego is our conscious world. Perhaps traditional is the superego, the ideal from culture, the shoulds, oughts, and have-tos. This has to do with our hunches. And what a lot of the writing nowadays, and things like the New Age movement, there's whole literatures of self-help books. There's whole, rows in bookstores of self-help books, 12-step books, learning astrology, all these things. Apparently there's a tremendous collective mood in there toward the charismatic authority. Well, what do you think, and what do you feel, and how are your experiences related? And looking at your dreams, see. And so the point is this. The point is our authority for becoming our true self and understanding our gender identity is going to be from all three of these. And to me, that makes life a mystery to unfold, not just a problem to solve. But I have to honor tradition. I have to honor customs because there's meaning in that. A family, people marrying and raising kids, and husband and wife and somebody staying at home with the kids and all that. And all of that, that has some meaning, doesn't it? Providing stability those first 5, 6, 8, 10 years. Only 7% of the families in America does the husband work, the wife stay home with the kids. When I was growing up, it was probably 90% of the families were like that. Okay. But we can't say, well, that's all bad. Now we have something else and it's good. Well, that's not all bad. It has its meaning and purpose. And then the rational authority, figuring out new ways to do things based on pragmatism and what works for us now, and looking at studies. And you know what the studies show about the staying at home thing? I can't quote this, who did the study, but I remember reading it. Is, for example, if the mom wants to stay at home and is able to stay at home, then the kids do fine. If the mom wants to work and she works, the kids do fine. If mom doesn't want to work and resents it, the kids pick up the energy. If mom doesn't want to stay at home but stays at home, she has gifts and talents to express, then the kids resent it. That's what all the studies show. So it really says, to the degree we're true to ourselves and our parenting responsibilities, our kids do fine. But when we have this split psyche, see, we're having to work and we resent it. Kids pick that up. Of course, only the gods and goddesses don't work. All us mortals are going to have to work. But or if the caregivers are able to be with those kids and like doing that. And there may be some men who are better mothers than women in the sense of nurturing and support and patience. Then the kids pick up that energy. What the kids pick up negatively is the split psyche, the split soul. That's why I have to resolve my baggage. Because if I don't resolve my baggage, I'll pass it on to you, my friends, my neighbors, my enemies. Okay, so who defines your life? That's the question. Is tradition, rational, charisma? How is your life defined? Conscious, unconscious, the superego? Well, I think it's defined by all of these. So let me tear off this mess and put another one down. Here's what happens as we enter this world, as we come into this world on a trailing cloud of glory, as Wordsworth talked about. You know, the goal in life is to become conscious. You just got to become conscious. Wake up, McFly, hello. And the Platonic view is, you know, we leave eternity to join the human experience, and we come out of the unknown. This self goes all the way to eternity. You know, there's a whole universe lies within us. And as I read earlier today, what the real issue is what doesn't happen to us. We don't explore these vast realms of ourselves. But anyway, so we become conscious. And so the goal is to become conscious, and 2 is to develop an ego. Is to develop an ego. And this is done during the first 14 years of life. And that ego is often developed around the ideal, which is where we get the word idol from, or our persona, or our mask, or our, you know, the ego says who's in charge and what are the rules. And here's what's real interesting, is the ego leaves the true self for survival. If you're a young girl and you have great intellectual capacity, ability to think, and maybe play with chemistry, or I don't know, Legos, and or athletics, and the parent unknowingly said, "Why don't you play with these Barbie dolls, Barbie dolls, Barbie dolls?" Well, the child will have a split psyche because their inner world may want to have this analytical mind that will, be another Frank Lloyd Wright, or I don't know, a great woman architect. That would be a good special extra credit. But so she was the mystery created in her to have this gift about the world, and so she but is handed Barbie dolls by the caregivers for survival. So she learns to play with the Barbie dolls, but it doesn't really fit. You see what I'm saying? And so she has this consternation, this split going on. So this ego is for survival, for our willpower, decision making. You got to have an ego, and we talked about being the barnacle that attaches us to the world. Our consciousness is attached. So developing a healthy ego is essential. And it's a long, slow process. It takes 14 years. It probably takes 20, 25 years. Much of the work as a therapist is helping people develop ego skills from having not developed them growing up. It's a struggle. It's our own nature, but it's not natural to develop an ego. The instincts have to adapt. See, it's easy to be instinctual. I want what I want when I want it, and I'm going to do it. Well, the ego has to learn you can't do that. You got to do this. You can't just walk out in the street. You'll get run over. You have to make some decisions, have some willpower. See, you just can't stick your hand in the fan to see how it feels. It'll cut off your fingers. You have to make a decision. See, so the instinctual world, see, would say, well, just go touch, smell, be, do whatever. But the ego has to say, no, we're not going to make it in this world if we let the instincts run us totally. Of course, you're not going to make it in this world if you don't let the instincts run you. For it's the ideals and the instincts that have to work together. So what we find is that in order to become conscious, the infant maintains consciousness for about 18 hours a day, and then it can't stand it anymore. And what does it do? It falls to sleep. And when it falls to sleep, it drifts into the unconscious. We maintain and hold consciousness for about 18 hours, and then we deintegrate. We just go to sleep. We're still alive. We're just not conscious. If you live 75 years, get 8 hours of sleep a day, which nobody does anymore, theoretically, you would be unconscious 25 years of your life. And theoretically, you'd be conscious 50 years. One of my goals in life is to try to be conscious during those 50 years and help other people be conscious when they're awake. See? So when you go to sleep, you don't die. You get dreams. You get things that happen, and that may be part of who we are too. Wouldn't it be interesting to pay attention to that? So the ego is the center of consciousness. It's not all of consciousness. It's not all of awareness, but it's the center of our conscious world. But all of our consciousness and awareness relates through the ego. And if the primary caregiver is present, giving support and love, the ego grows and develops. For to develop and to grow requires dealing with a lot of fears in life. A lot of fears. And let me just put it back on 3 here. We'll do it. Let me tell you some of the fears we have to deal with. And I'm telling you, to a large degree, we are run by our fears until we find security and a love and a sense of self that can handle and understand our fears. One of the greatest fears is the fear of smothering. Fear of being smothered. Fear of being held too tightly. That fear that if it's being too close. And every child that grows up has to be held and fed and nurtured. And if we get too much smothering, too much closeness, we won't be able to breathe. And air deprivation is one of the most frightening fears you'll ever experience. If you've ever been deprived of breathing, you can't imagine the terror you'll have. When you can't breathe, everything within the body fights, see, because you have to breathe. So not only physically, but psychologically, the fear of smothering. The fear is that the child will be so absorbed in mother's world that the child won't be able to breathe. The second fear is, it's sort of the opposite, is the fear of abandonment. And this is being too separate. Too much separateness. And the fear of being abandoned, the fear of being smothered. These are the two primary fears in all relationships. How close can we be and still maintain our identity? How much separateness can we have and still get support? And see, what we find in the gender world, for example, is people wanting to express their unique self and yet being abandoned and rejected for it. Or, for example, a woman moving into a predominantly patriarchal world and losing her innate personhood, being engulfed by the smothering of the system, of the patriarch, of that way of doing things. See what I'm saying? So all relationships are the dance of intimacy. How close can we be? Are you going to be there for me? Are you going to love me? Can I really be myself and still be in this relationship? Or as we separate, will I be loved? As we come close, will you smother me? But this is innate fears we all have. It's interesting. We see culturally so many people staying single now for fear of being smothered and having their freedom taken away. And yet people still get married, you know. But half the marriages don't work, or at least bail out. 40% of second marriages don't work within 10 years. The studies show. Well, I think those issues are around, this relationship smothered me. Gee, this relationship didn't give me the support I needed. And that's why people split. And so much of that has to do with early childhood development. To the degree you were smothered and held too close, you will have to work through that in relationships. To the degree you were abandoned and not valued and validated for who you are and given support, you'll have to take that baggage in. Another fear is the fear of being attacked. The fear of being attacked. And that's that your ideas, your feelings, your thoughts, or the fear of being attacked physically. Fear of being attacked emotionally or psychologically. And most men have no clue what it's like for a woman to walk out even in a lighted parking lot at 10 o'clock at night. Most men have no idea what that is for a woman. And there's probably very few women you'd talk to who would say, oh, that's no problem for me. See? Because of the vulnerability and the projection that often men who are out of touch with their own feelings look for some victim to take that out on. That's why it's important in knowing yourself, ladies, guys, is hold your shoulders back. Walk with a sense of, I'm going to kick your butt if you mess with me. See? I mean, why does the robber or the attacker not pick that woman, that one, that one, or that one in Central Park or someplace? Because the one carries himself in such a way that says, I can be victimized. See? And do we know that do we even know how we carry ourselves? Do we give messages off that says, I won't fight for myself? I mean, how do we carry it? Do you know yourself? How do you present yourself to the world? And this has tremendous issues to do with setting boundaries and identity. And of course, men who are unaware of their own rage and anger coming out of the drugstore yesterday, I saw some guy walked out and he looked pretty wealthy, affluent, got in this nice car. He threw that door open with just rage and stormed off to his car. And I went, whoa, this is frightening stuff. See, what is boiling in his unconscious that he's going to go project on somebody? So fear of being attacked is an innate fear. And the fourth fear is the fear of being exposed. That is that your thoughts, your feelings, your ideals will be ridiculed, put down, neglected, laughed at, ridiculed, I said. The fear of exposure is one of the when you're vulnerable and very human, insecure, and a fear that you're going to be exposed for your problems. Most people can't communicate because they're afraid that if they share their ideas, someone will get defensive and attack back. And healthy relating is being able to say, it's safe for me to express who I am without being attacked. Well, if you grew up in a family where you couldn't expose your real feelings, Mommy, I hate you. See? And you have to have a pretty secure mother to be able to absorb that like a sponge and go, you do? What do you hate me for? Wow, that's pretty heavy. Tell me about it. See, if you have an insecure mom or caregiver who goes, don't you ever hate me. See? Then the kid says, well, no wonder the kid never tells his or her feelings to the caregiver. Because the caregiver said, don't expose your real feelings because I will attack you for that. And you wonder how people have problems in intimacy down the road because there are these innate fears that stay with us throughout life that are part of our baggage. And then the other one is the fear of our own instincts turning on us. Our own destructive instincts turning on us. And this can be our depression, our rage, our unreconciled feelings. I mean, God forbid you can't but pick up the newspaper any given day and see what people, how their rage has caused them to do some mad things, destructive things. See? And if you say, oh, no, not me, well, you're skating on thin ice, given the same situations. You know, this is possible for any of us, but the fear that we just get so depressed we would give up, which is what the mother complex is to give up. And you can't give up. You have to keep taking another step into the cold north wind of life and saying, I'm going to keep growing, I'm going to keep becoming. See? And many, when our instincts take over, and it can happen to anyone, our anger, there's a fear that those dark recesses of our soul can one day emerge, and we just say, screw it, to hell with it. See? And do you read the papers? You know, people do this all the time, and they take their rage out on others because what's happened is their instincts have taken over. Much of alcoholism and drinking is people trying to keep those at bay. See? Much of the of our addictive behaviors are all because we can't stand the anxiety, the fear, the insecurities our instincts have. But conscious living is coming to terms with that. My point I'm trying to make is it's not difficult. It is difficult to develop an ego because we're having to deal with all these fears. And then a sixth one would be the fear of change. This is kind of funny because, not funny ha-ha, but curiously funny, because the thing we want to do is change and grow, and yet we fear that. I want to become more of my true self, but will I like the true self leaving the old self? Moving from a relationship, will there be another one? Can I live with myself? Moving from old concepts and beliefs. Can I believe what I want to believe and mother doesn't like it, and can I still believe that? Can I develop philosophies and ideas about money, sex, theology, people, whatever, lifestyle, and be different from father? Can I do that? See? And or do I fear that change will cause something negative to happen? And then the last one I put here is it's really the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of the unknown, or fear of the unknown. It's really the fear of death. The fear that I will not be, that the anxiety is the fear of non-being. This all sounds kind of heavy, probably for a college, undergraduate course. You know, we should talk about nice things, pop psychology things, something that Oprah would like, you know. But since we're here about becoming conscious and aware, we have to understand that these fears pervade all of our lives almost from birth. See? You can imagine the world of the child. The child must think it's dying when it's being born, because it's leaving that embryonic fluid, the security, umbilical cord to take care of all of its bodily functions. It can bounce through life in the safety of that womb. It's warm, dark, perfect. And then when the child is born, can you imagine the radical transformation of experience of life? It's going to take food and oxygen and everything in a whole different way. And now it's cold, and you can be dropped, and people won't be there to take care of you, and you can be abandoned, and then you can be smothered. And, you know, the child must think, what is going on here? See? So the birth into the human experience that requires the development of an ego, unconsciously, is a whole lot the human being has to develop. My point of saying all this is when we look at the overall problems of gender identity and the power struggle in the culture and the political arena of women finding rights, gays and lesbians finding rights, minority people finding rights, anybody finding their rights, what we see is these innate fears coming up, not only in the people I mentioned, but in everybody. Fear that someone's going to move in on my territory. Fear that if I move in on somebody's territory, I'll be attacked. Fear that I'm going to be exposed for being a human being and having all these vulnerabilities. And what often I wonder about is in some of the literature, it doesn't seem to address the depths of these issues that are going on, that all the research is trying to look at and try to help us to understand. I like to go, actually, understand means to stand under. Stand under. Means to understand the unconscious. Means to stand under the conscious world. To try to understand the motivations. In fact, these fears motivate us and determine so much of our life, our values, our opinions, our judgment. And I want us to look at that. Okay, what we looked at last time, well, let me stop. Any questions, Amy and Shauna and John out there? No. That was in harmony. That was good. John, how about you?
No, sir, not at this time.
Anybody in here? But see, I can see you guys nodding, so you're not off to sleep, but I see you going, yeah. So part of this resonates within, and it's another way to explore this and look at this. Well, so let me just in the next few minutes, let me say, so what happens, and this isn't, I'm not harping on mothers, but what we end up getting is, since mother's the primary caregiver or a mother kind of caregiver, we get one or two things. We either get over-mothered or we get under-mothered. See, and mothering is the principle of soothing and comforting and protecting. That's the principle of mothering. And the ego can grow when it gets that kind of support to do that. What ends up happening, since all of us grow up with fallible people, we either get over-mothered or under-mothered. We never sort of get it just right. And when we get over-mothering is where we get too much TLC. We are put on this little pedestal. And let me say this is not necessarily from mother, a woman. We could get too much mothering from a father, from a man. But we get put on a pedestal, and we get indulged. We don't get feedback. You know what feedback is? If you give a horse feed, if you wait a while, you'll get the feedback. Feedback is essential. Feedback is the willingness of a parent to conflict with a child for the sake of the child. See? It's to say, oh, fine, you can go out there and swim. You don't need a life. Well, I don't want to wear a life jacket. Oh, it's okay. I just don't want you to be upset. Oh, it'll be fine. You're just playing in the, 2 feet or 3 feet of water. You don't need a life jacket or something. And in fact, not giving the child feedback about life, that you can drown in a little bit of water and you're going to have to wear this. But the parent who's indulging the child because of some innate need to deal with their own unmet needs in the parent's life doesn't give the child feedback that, no, you're going to have to wear this because I have to take care of you and I'm going to tell you this is how life works. And the fear of being rejected by the child, which is about the mother's own innate rejected needs that they hadn't come to terms with, is that the child gets put on a pedestal and can do no wrong, and the child's worship and indulge and, oh, whatever you want. The Christmas carol, O Little Town of Bethlehem, talking of the Christ child, says, the hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight. Now, we all do that to our children, don't we? And that's just, and that's good. It's not all bad. We project our hopes and fears on our children. But to make a child, to give one innate meaning in life, and not give them feedback about how to function for the child's sake is to over-mother the child and to wound them severely. And what happens is this child ends up coming out in life as very narcissistic. Narcissistic. This child ends up growing and never gets feedback from anybody. These over-mothered, over-parented, indulged child from mother or father, they end up never looking at their own life for how they participate in the problem. These people, it's always somebody else's fault. That narcissistic character disorder personality. See? And so they go, me? Me? No, I don't think so. I expect the world to adapt to me and find my fantasy. I expect everybody to change for me because they did growing up. You know, all I had to do is just cry and they would change and adapt and run to the store and get this and indulge me here and just provide for all my needs. And so that child that's over-mothered is severely wounded because they never learn about the way the world is and how you have to adapt to it and you have to learn and shift. But you can imagine indulged, narcissistic people who are in power positions dealing with gender issues. What do you mean I have to change? What do you mean this role that we're having in this relationship is going to change? No, men always do this. No, women always do this. I'm not going to change. See? And then under-mothering, actually, another way, over-mothering is called a positive mother complex. And then a negative mother complex. A negative mother complex is what would that be? Class, what would that be? Yeah, is not enough TLC, which means tender, loving care, neglect. Actually, Kim, it would actually be too much feedback in the form of what? Criticism. Yeah, just criticism. See, the positive mother complex child doesn't get critiquing, is not criticized, and therefore doesn't get feedback about life. The negative mother complex gets too much criticism. And this person becomes what? A people pleaser. They are overly adaptive. See? A chameleon. I don't think that's how you spell it, but you know, like a lizard. This tends to be the codependent personality, and codependency isn't all bad; it's essential. But a person that doesn't get that gets criticized too much, we go looking around like the little Dr. Seuss thing. Are you my mother? Do you like me? Am I okay? Accept me. See, we are so self-critical. We don't feel good enough. So we adjust and adapt ourselves to try to get TLC and love from other people because we never got it. Interesting enough, the negative mother complex people end up going to therapy because we think it's all our fault. And therapists say, wait a minute, it's not all your fault. You're dealing with all these idiot people. See, the positive mother complex person rarely goes to therapy. And they don't stay because what would they have to do to stay in therapy? They'd have to own their own stuff and say, gee, what do I need to change to make this relationship work? See? And the negative mother complex person is always in therapy, sort of navel-gazing, trying to find out what's going on. Here's what's interesting, is you can get over under-mothering because you can find value and worth. It's a little more difficult to get over mothering because you pretty much think that you count and too much, and it's hard to admit that, gee, I guess I've got some problems. But see, you can say, I've got too many problems, and you can learn to say, wait a minute, I don't have any more problems than anybody else. So you can imagine taking these issues, and we'll look at more of this our next class on ego development, how this affects the way our ego develops. Yes, quick question.
I had a question. Is it possible to be overmothered in some aspects and undermothered in other aspects, and sort of have a real confusing?
Absolutely. To get overmothered and undermothered in the same family from different people. And that's how we get split and confused. And I'm a caregiver over here, and I'm narcissistic over here. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a good question, and something good to reflect on about that, about your own life. You can write a little paper on it, turn it in for extra credit, if it would help you grow. We're done for the day. Thank you all. I'll see you in the next class. Bye-bye.